Hello, I'm Lucas Reynolds reporting for NB Media Co-op from Sackville. In the wake of Acadian Day, or Le Kinzu, on Friday the 15th of August, we are reflecting on the deep history of Acadian culture throughout New Brunswick. The Société de l'Acadie de Nouveau-Brunswick, or Acadian Society of New Brunswick, is the official political representative for Acadian and Francophone communities within New Brunswick. Today, their president, Nicole Arseneau-Sluyter, is here to discuss both the past and potential future of Acadians and Francophones in New Brunswick. First, can you tell me the role of SANB?
Our major mission at the Acadian Society of New Brunswick is to defend our rights and promote the language. As you know, New Brunswick is the only bilingual province in New Brunswick, in Canada, I should say, and we have equal rights at the government level, federal and provincial. If you go to hospital, if you go to Service New Brunswick, liquor store, corporate organization. So, but it's been like this for over 50 years. Our organization, the Acadian Society of New Brunswick, SANB, started 52 years ago in June. And we are the one that we defend, we are involved in the revision of the official LLO, language law of New Brunswick and Canada. We're members of the Société nationale de l'Acadie, which regroups all Atlantic provinces, Maine, Louisiana, France, Belgium. So we're a member of that. And every province in the Atlantic Canada has an organization like us, PEI, Nova Scotia, Newfoundland. And so we are part of that organization, which is more international. They make deals with France and culturally and other, it could be business also. And then we're also members of the FCFA, the Federation of Canadian, French and Acadian. And the president is from Moncton, Liane Roy. So they deal with every organization across Canada, all the provinces and territories except Quebec. So at the federal level, I've been in front of the Senate a few times to present and defend Law C-35, which when Mulroney died that night, it was approved at the legislation in Ottawa. And that law means it guarantees funding for minority French daycare in Canada. So that was approved just last winter, I believe. Anyways, when Brian Mulroney died. So I appeared in front of the Senate and I talked a lot about assimilation because I live in St. John since 1987. So I worked in the French community center. I was involved with the school. I was on the school board. I've been involved with this French community in St. John for a very long time. By the way, we have more Francophones in St. John than there are in Caracat as of today. Yes. And so even as a bilingual province, even that, the statistics are showing the next census they do for Canada, the next, I think it's called census or recensement that's going to happen. In New Brunswick, we in the 70s were almost 40% French against English in the province. Well, the next census, we probably will be under the 30%. And that's because of all the migration from across Canada moving through COVID into New Brunswick, Anglophone. And we can't control immigration. It's controlled by Ottawa, federal level. Quebec is different, but we're not. So we have a catch up to do. In order to equalize or make balance immigration, we need to have like almost 50% coming in every year, because as I travel through the province, which I do a lot, all these takeout, Tim Hortons, all these restaurants, they only have workers that speaks English. We don't have enough coming in, and we don't have enough programs for immigrants to learn French. So there's a lot of issues, and this is what we really do. We lobby all the time, Ottawa, Fredericton, with all the MLAs and the minister, we need to improve because it looks like we're going to become like Louisiana, and it's very scary. And the province has a weird landscape because if you look at the Northeast, like Shippagan, Tracadie, even Bathurst now, Campbellton, Edmundston, the majority of people are French. A lot of them don't speak English. But then if you come to the south, Fredericton, Moncton, St. John, Moncton even named as the bilingual city, there's way more, you hear a lot more English around. And the phenomena is, what's happening is with the internet. Children are on their phone, they're listening to English music, English, and slowly but surely we're losing our culture. So I'm saying a lot of things here, and culturally, we don't teach enough Acadian history in New Brunswick, English, French. We need to, if you don't know your history, you don't have that sense of belonging to, I mean, I was involved enough in the school here in St. John, Samuel de Champlain, the center. Kids are speaking English all around. Now it's happening in the French area. I grew up in Balmoral, New Brunswick, totally French, never learned English until I was 21 years old after university. My parents still don't speak English, but it's not the case anymore. There's a lot of English around the world, around us. We're surrounded by it. So the province of New Brunswick, if we want to keep the bilingual status and we want to improve services for everyone, we'll need to promote it more. We need to have promotion stuff in place. We need the teachers. If you're studying in English to become a teacher, or in French, we need to make those teachers bilingual so they can teach in French immersion. We definitely need French immersion in this province and across Canada. But another issues with that now with teachers is we're lacking of French teachers. So again, we need to go to the international, we need to go to the immigration. And there were some changes at the federal level. So this is what we do on a daily basis. We try to improve our situation here. So regarding co-op now, you wanted me to talk about that. Well, my parents, they're still alive, 86, 87. As Acadian in the northern part of New Brunswick, they are really the first generation that made it, that had jobs, made money, saved money, will leave money to their children. It's the first generation. Our history is very young. 400 years ago, we arrived in New Brunswick. And for the longest time after the deportation, Acadians were very silent. They were hiding. And you still have that mentality in New Brunswick and around the world. It's like, let's not, let's not get involved. Everything is working. Let's be silent and let's not fight. It's a very small percentage of Acadians that are fighters. And, it started really with Louis Robichaud as premier, equal rights for English, French. That's when we started to see some changes. So Acadians only in 1946, they opened the first Caisse Populaire, which was co-op. So it's not that old. It's what? It's not even 100 years old yet. So people started saving, starting having better jobs. And then in the 60s, Roger Robichaud started University of Moncton. Before that, if you were French, you had to go to Quebec. And if you didn't have any money, so what we saw, the education and the Acadian population in the 50s, 60s, 70s got better. It was families that would get all their money together and send maybe one in the family into priesthood or into nunnery. And again, the nuns in New Brunswick, they're the ones that became teachers. They became nurses. They worked with the community so we would be better educated. So the University of Moncton started in 1963. And still, for the longest time, you couldn't become a medical doctor until, I don't know, that long ago, not even maybe 10 years now. So again, they had to go to Quebec, which was very expensive. So that's when we started to see the changes in the 60s and the 70s, people more educated, having their own business, being successful. You had Assomption Vie in Moncton, insurance company, and that was huge. The Caisse Populaire, of course, helped a lot of people. I remember when I was young, my father, he worked very hard, my father. He had to leave in the winter and work with these companies in Quebec, like all over the place. And he started his own business in the 60s, and he was very, very successful. But he told me the story. He went to the Royal Bank of Canada in Dalhousie one time to cash a check, and they wouldn't. And because he didn't have any history, he didn't have a bank account. So it was very, very difficult. So through those years, people worked really, really hard. And still today, Lamec, which is near Shippagan in northeastern New Brunswick, is like the capital of co-op. You have a lot of people getting together and developing co-op in businesses. So it's still a very important aspect of businesses and Acadians. Acadians are still today, a lot of them can't read or write. They're, in proportion to English, there's a lot of poor Francophone in this province. And I often think, yes, we are in the law an official bilingual province, but is bilingualism only for Francophone? Like, is it only Francophone that learn English? I think there's a lot of work to be done still. And we just saw what happened with the US and the tariffs. Well, as a bilingual province, we're going to thrive. We can go to Europe. We can sell our products. We can, France, Belgium, Africa. So it is an advantage. But people today, I don't believe they are convinced of that. So the job, it's up to the government of New Brunswick to promote it more, to be there. And that's what we do. We encourage, we work with them, and we work with we have 28 French associations, organization in New Brunswick, like from municipality, teachers, daycare. And once a year, we get together in Fredericton, and we have a theme in the last 3 years. So the last one we had was about health, because health, again, I've been at the regional hospital in St. John 3 or 4 times in the last year, and I have no service in French, and that's shouldn't happen. So, they're saying, well, we can't get employees. Well, that's why we have to look at immigration. We have to train people. So there's still a lot of work to do. I am very passionate about it, as you can probably tell. And I have another year. I'll finish next June, and I don't know what I'll do after. I was retired when I took this job, but there'll be something. Another thing that I'm very passionate about is in St. John, seniors, when they would retire from their jobs, Irving or whatever, teachers, they would move back to their place of where they grew up, like Caracat, Bathurst, or Balmoral, where I'm from. Well, it's not the case anymore, because those areas are losing a lot of services. People are moving out. The young kids are all moving out. I mean, the schools are emptying. It's maybe a little bit more stable now because Moncton is full, St. John's difficult to get apartments. It's expensive. But, when having that, like it's an aging population in New Brunswick, and here in St. John, so seniors now, when they retire, they choose to stay here. I'm not going to move back to Balmoral. I can guarantee you that. I have one daughter that works here in St. John, and I want to be around her. And so when I get old and I need to go senior home in St. John, well, guess what? There's not one place in St. John that can give French service. to seniors, not one place. And that doesn't fall under the law because senior citizens' place are private. So it doesn't fall. So that's one thing I'm very passionate and I'm going to lobby, and I don't know how I'm going to be successful, but I know a lot of seniors here that would love to be able to have their dinner and be served in French in a bilingual province. So
Would you say you are seeing the sort of loss of Acadian culture? You talk about this immigration to Anglophone cities. Are people keeping the culture alive for two, three generations, or does it slowly become Anglophone?
I see it slipping. Like August 15, it's the big celebration and people, but what the problem I find right now with the young generation, the children, is they don't know about it. Like parents are not maybe sold on it, or they're not making enough effort. I mean, it depends where you are in the province, some areas, but I found it slipping. There's not enough work in the school. Like the schools are really good to be inclusive and do celebration for all these country. But I feel the Acadian history and that we have in New Brunswick needs to be known more. And if you don't know your history, well, you don't have any attachment to your culture. And if your parents are not playing the Acadian music, I mean, my family, we still meet every year. We had a big family reunion in August, but it's not all like that. Um, I feel it's more important than ever to come back to the basics and to teach what happened and what's going on. So we have a big gathering. We're going to have a big gathering in the spring next year, the Acadian side of New Brunswick, with all these organizations and the whole population. And we've been having meetings all across the province. And we're going to sit down for a weekend, and we call it les états généraux, and do an analysis that where we came from, where we are, and where we're heading. Because for example, in Moncton, the city of Moncton, the French African population is growing, growing, growing. Acadians are getting older. We're not having as much kids. So there's a lot of work to be done.
You talked about that sort of blending of Acadian culture with other Francophone immigrants. That seems like a very big push to grow Acadian culture from this sort of insular community.
In my book, the way I feel, if you want to live in French in New Brunswick, you're part of the Acadian family. Doesn't matter where you're from. We're not doing DNA testing. It's everybody's got to understand that you are part of the French culture. You need to know about it, and we need to all celebrate together and grow together.
Earlier, you were talking about the start of cooperatives during the 30s, the 40s. As a bit of context, currently, when bilingual cooperatives are discarded, the ones that give their communications in both English and Francophone, 44% of cooperatives are primarily Francophone, though the Francophone community makes up 30% of the New Brunswick population, according to the census. How would your organization respond and explain this 14% difference? Do you think it is that history still?
I think so. I believe so. Yes. History is young. Takes a long time to change.
I've heard reports, though, and seen that less cooperatives are coming out that are primarily Francophone. We're seeing an uptick of bilingual cooperatives, but also primarily Anglophone or just offering no Francophone services. Are you seeing this? New businesses being started?
Uh, Again, there's a lot of work being done in the different municipalities that are mostly French, to have policies within their municipality to promote to have French first. And there is laws in New Brunswick. If you're 20%, your population is over 20% is English in a French community, you have to offer both. But it's a bilingual province, so everything is in both languages. But if you have a municipal meeting in Caracat, you don't have to have translation. Cities do have, like St. John, Fredericton, Moncton, Bathurst, but municipalities, it depends on their percentage. And what happened, like my village, Balmoral, they amalgamated with the villages around and the Eel River Bar, and the percentage of French went down. English went up. So now everything is bilingual. So we are encouraging all these municipalities to have a policy to have their meeting French first, and then when you need to translate, you translate, but to keep the French Acadian sense in those municipalities. Then we've had a lot of pushback. Coquin, Beausoleil, Beau Rivage, people say, no, 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 it's working, we're good, we don't need those policies. Those policies are not to stop the services for Anglophone. It's not that, it's just to put French first, you know, with, because it's disappearing, really. So there's a lot of that happening. Of course, businesses, the majority is done in English. I mean, I'm not a fool. I know how this province works. But when you have a bilingual business, well, it opens a lot of doors across Canada and in Europe and all around the world. So the people that understand that, well, they're going to do much better, I think.
Now, to say take a sort of opposite view, what would you say to those who claim that Acadian issues are by and large resolved, that you can switch to English for a bit and it's not the end of the world? How would you respond to that sort of rhetoric that stands against sort of these policies?
Well, it depends on your clientele.
Mhm.
Uh, you need to serve your clients in their language they want. I mean, I can't force that. I mean, I'm served in English all the time here in St. John, but more and more, if I ask and they recognize, or if like at the liquor store, for example, they say hello, bonjour. Well, I say bonjour, and I would say 9 times out of 10 in St. John, I'm served in French. So that's an improvement. That was never like that. So again, it's promotion, it's encouraging. And I know what, 16,000 children are in French immersion. I mean, we need that big time. And not every one of those children will be working in French, because a language it's simple. If you want to learn a language, you got to practice. You got to hear it. You got to see it. And if you don't, you can lose the language. As a Francophone, I can lose my French. I could have chosen that when I moved to St. John. My husband doesn't speak French, but I've made effort for my daughter to be bilingual to begin with. And because we have a school now, but that was not always the case. There's so many Acadians in St. John that are assimilated. It's unbelievable. The last study that was done, 1,000 children should be in the French school in St. John that are in English, because the area is too big, wide, and parents, they want the local school in the neighborhood. They don't want to put their kids on a bus. So there's still tons of work to do. They're talking about opening a French school in St. Stephen. Well, that's not done yet. Sussex doesn't have a French school. I know people I work with here in St. John from Edmundston, French people. Their kids are in French immersion because no school. The Woodstock area between Fredericton and Woodstock. I know a girl that lives in Woodstock brings her child to Fredericton to go to French school. Imagine the drive. So we still have a lot of work to do.
Now, returning to history, there's been talk about former Premier Higgs as a sort of inflection point, that it was a sort of the lights turned on, and that some of the rights were finally seen to not be immutable, that people thought for a long time that they were
Mhm.
enshrined, but now you saw someone push back. Would you agree, disagree with that characterization?
Blaine Higgs made a lot of mistakes how he treated the French people, and they crucified him. I mean, he had no hope in hell, and it was very difficult to bring back. When he said Francophones are like lampposts or lampshade, they'll vote. Um, that, that went a long way, and he lost. He kept saying that he could win the election without the Francophone vote. Well, the last election he lost. So um, he was not one to promote, to work with the French community. They didn't like him, and he didn't make any effort. And it was very difficult. It was very difficult. Um, and with Susan Holt being bilingual and her government having it's much different. We expect a lot more from this government to promote and to help our rights and to make it better in this province.
Perfect. Now, would you agree that cooperatives are well known by older members of the Acadian community? You talked about the younger generation. Are you seeing this trend continued? Are you talking to young Acadians
That's
who?
a that's a very good question. I don't know. I
Mhm.
don't know. I don't know. Maybe in Lamec area, maybe they do. That's one thing I don't hear about. So I really don't know. But it was a very important aspect of the development of Acadians and businesses in this province. So, there's a lot of competition with banks and all of that. I know the Caisse Populaire Unie call now went through a very tough time when they changed their way of doing things. But they're still contributing a lot to Acadians, like the Acadians games. They support that, and they support all kinds of stuff in the province. So it's a very important. Now, again, I think we need to pass that on to the new generation, because if it's not passed on, it might disappear. Who knows?
If you could speak directly to these young Francophones or Acadians and talk about that history, what would you want to tell them? What would you like them to take from this?
It's funny that you say that, because I started to visit schools in the spring, like young kids, and talk about Acadia and what I did, and it was amazing how they didn't know. They didn't know August 15. They didn't know the Tintamarre, the parade we make with noise. They didn't know. So I'm not the one alone. I can't do it alone, but I think we all have to work together all across this province and make things and teach the children, because I'm worried that it's going to disappear. I'm really worried about it. If we don't improve our numbers and promote it better, I don't know what's going to happen. But I hope it stays, because it's an advantage for all New Brunswickers.
I've been speaking with Nicole Arseneau-Sluyter, President of Société de la Acadienne du Nouveau-Brunswick. Thanks so much for joining us today for the NB Media Co-op. I'm Lucas Reynolds.
Thank you, Lucas, and good luck.